This is my second time recording this video because the first time my Windows got wiped off of my SSD. Not the SSD itself, but Windows got wiped off of it because I plugged in a hard drive and it just took Windows off. I don't even know what happened myself, really. So I had to reinstall Windows, right? So I figured I'll just install it over. It'll keep all my old files, right? So it did, but it didn't save my Bandicam recordings. At least if it did save them, I can't find any of them. So now I'm just stuck doing this. But yeah, so I have to record this video a second time now. It's really unfortunate. You probably don't know this, but recently I was playing I played the Mafia Definitive Trilogy. That's Mafia 1 Definitive Edition through Mafia 3 Definitive Edition. For Definitive Edition, we'll just say DE for now. So, Mafia 1 DE to Mafia 3 DE. Well, sort of. Mafia 3, I sort of completed this. That I'll have to talk about separately, okay? But for now, let's talk about Mafia 1. This is just an overview and my thoughts on the whole thing, on each game. In general, I'm going to be talking about Mafia 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, this is not really going to be an in-depth review of each game. It's just going to be my thoughts and an overview as a whole. So, yeah, I originally played Mafia 2 back in 2019, in about like August and September-ish. Back in August 2019. That's when I first started playing Mafia 2, right? I didn't play the original. I didn't have access to that. It was much easier. It's much easier to get a hold of Mafia 2 now than Mafia 1. But yeah, and seeing that Mafia 1, it was a very different game for the time. It was much more realistic than what people were than what people wanted. And I feel, if anything, they should have made a less realistic game to sort of ease people into the realism of Mafia 1, you know? If they made a less realistic game first, then they made Mafia 1 after that, people would be more eased into Mafia 1's realism. They'd be like, okay, yeah, this is how things work, it's Mafia. However, that wasn't the case, and Mafia 1 jumped the gun on that. But back to everything else. So yeah, Mafia 1 DE, of course, is what I played. And originally, this is back when I started making reshade mods and graphics mods for certain games, and I was actually getting really good at it. And I wanted to do one for Mafia 1, but then they announced Mafia DE, so I figured I'll just do that instead. I'll just play that instead. Because again, I haven't played Mafia 1 yet. So I played through it, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every last bit of the story, the gameplay. It was good and all. Again, I love how Mafia games, at least Mafia 1 and 2, have a sandbox sort of gameplay style. They don't have an open world sort of style, and I think that's really amazing. I think not amazing, but I just love that so much more than having a full-on open world. I just like having that sandbox sort of thing. It's what the original 2D GTA games did. They were sandboxes. They weren't open world games. And so I played through Mafia 1 DE, and yeah, experiencing the story for the first time, it was great. I loved it. I was passionate about it. I loved the characters. I loved everything. The only thing I guess could use some work was the shooting, as it was piggybacking off of Mafia 3. But then again, it had so much other stuff backing up that shooting felt great. So I really enjoyed the shooting. Mafia 3 didn't really have as many things backing it up. But then again, I gotta talk about that later, because I have some stuff to say about that. But yeah, Mafia 1 DE, it's a great remaster. And I think if you haven't played Mafia 1, this is a great way to get into it. There are a few bugs I noticed. I'm sure those will be cleaned out or have already been cleaned out. But yeah, there were a few bugs I noticed. For instance, sometimes two cars would stop and they wouldn't try and... They'd be going sort of the same direction, or they would almost collide into each other and stop. And they would just sit there. They wouldn't really do much to sort of get out and get back to driving. So yeah, certain bugs like that would happen where they just sit there forever. But there's also a lot of hidden details that they put in that I actually missed. You know, for instance, in the racing mission, you can actually see the French guy getting beaten up if you go to a certain part of the map because he lost the race or his car died. So that's pretty unfortunate, at least for him. But there's a lot of more hidden details. The graphics are great. Didn't think I'd be able to pull it off on a 960, but I was able to maintain mostly 30 frames, so that made everything a lot better, And the story pretty much remains the same-ish, but there's a lot of... The whole tone and everything is so much more different, you know? Yeah, there's a lot of things about the story that have been changed, but the main overview of the story itself is the same. I really think Mafia DE wasn't meant to appeal to fans of the original, as there's a lot of things it puts away for... There's a lot of bits of realism, I guess, it puts away for certain reasons, but... When Mafia 1, the original Mafia 1 was released, it received a lot of hate, again, for it being too realistic. This game is for those people who didn't like the original. I feel this remaster is for those people who did not like the original. So I think that's a good way of describing it. There are some things that took away from the original Mafia 1 that I don't know why they did. For instance, hit detection. Whenever you'd shoot a guy in the original Mafia 1, they would flinch and they would take damage from it. It would look like it, you know. They wouldn't be able to just they wouldn't be invincible. It looked like. I mean, here's what I'm trying to say. It just when you shot someone, they would get knocked back a bit and they won't be able to shoot right away. You know, kind of like how they did in GoldenEye. In Mafia 1 DE, for some reason, they took this out, and that is a bad thing, as you can imagine, because it means they're just straight up shooting at you, and therefore the realism is getting toned down a bit. But that's just a minor detail. For the most part, everything else is still great. And then there's also a trip to the country, which they changed more than I thought. The original one, you had this loud sort of rain in the background with thunder and whatnot that I actually liked. There was no music and everything; it was literally just sounds, and it made it for this really sort of unique feeling scene. They sort of toned down the rain a lot and put music behind it and everything, and that I don't really agree with. I like the tone of the original game better. If you've never seen Trip to the Country, or at least the original one, you should. You should see the original mission, then compare it to the Mafia DE version. I think the original is better in tone and ambience and whatnot, and that's unfortunate because I really would have liked that sort of tone it had. How it's just loud rain with gunshots here and there, and just it doesn't have any music or anything behind it. That I really would have liked. I'm not sure how many Easter eggs Mafia 1 DE had also. I did notice one, which was with Scorsese imports, which was the harbor mission where you go chase down that one guy after you just shot up a diner. But, yeah, no, you go chase down that one guy. I forgot who it was. But anyways, you go to this harbor, and there's this import place there for importing and exporting, and it's called Scorsese Imports, and obviously that's a reference to Martin Scorsese himself. For those of you who don't know who that is, he's a director who's directed a lot of great mafia movies. Casino, you know, is one of them. Goodfellas, also directed by Martin Scorsese, and The Irishman, that was also a great movie, and he even did other movies like Mean Streets was a great movie, even though it wasn't a mob movie. Mean Streets was a great New York movie. Taxi Driver was also one he did. He's done a lot of movies. So, but what he's mostly known for is Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, and I guess The Irishman now. But yeah, that was obviously a clear nod to him, because Scorsese isn't just a random name you pull out of the bag. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, no, Mafia DE is a great remaster, and when I upgrade my graphics card in Christmas, I might even replay it, because I'll be able to have better graphics options and motion blur and whatnot. I generally enjoy motion blur, but if I can take, I don't have it on modern games because it uses up frames, and those are frames I desperately need. So I end up turning it off, as I could really play a lot without it. But when I can turn it on, I do, except don't turn it on too much. Borderlands 3 motion blur was not too good. It blurred a lot of stuff. But yeah, for the most part, I'm okay with motion blur, especially in older games. It actually makes them look a lot better. Back on topic. So yeah, Mafia DE, I'd really recommend it. If you really like Mafia 2, you're really gonna like this game. If you like Mafia 2, not just for its story, but for its gameplay and game mechanics, you're gonna like this game as well. And yeah, just so you know, it is piggybacking kind of off of Mafia 3. There's something to note, because again, they use the same engine, so yeah. But honestly, I enjoyed it so much more than Mafia 3. But we're not gonna talk about Mafia 3 now. We're gonna talk about Mafia 2 DE. This is obviously less of a remaster. Mafia 2 DE is one of those HD remasters that's made just to have an excuse to put a game on the next generation of consoles. Originally, I couldn't tell a difference, but I saw some before and after shots and things became much more clear. But there's a lot of textures in the game that just haven't been touched and just look the same. I think that's really too bad, because if they went by and just literally like reran each texture in a high resolution like they did with the other ones, it would be looking much better. Obviously, it won't be completely reformed and remade like Mafia DE, but it would have been a much better remaster than what we got. Still, it's again, if you're looking to play the game, you can play the DE, or you can play Mafia 2 DE. Oh, be right back, hold on. But yeah, if you're looking to replay the game, or play Mafia 2 for the first time, play the Definitive Edition, only because it has better graphics. Everything else is literally the same. The story is the same, the story's the same, pretty much, and the gameplay's the same. It's just the same game with better textures. and more cinematicness to it. For instance, when you drive, the edges of the screen are actually motion blurred, and I feel like it does add a much more better cinematic look to it. So I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, again, it's literally the same game. In Mafia 1, you had like a bunch of stuff change in the story, but again, the overall story was the same. For instance, in the mission where you go to the brothel, um, Sam, again, in the original one, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to make sure this woman was dead or kill her just because she squealed. But in the definitive edition, Sam wants you to actually let her live and make sure she gets out alive. And I think they made it so this way you'd hate Sam more so at the end because he got you in trouble for that, pretty much. You got in trouble for that at the end, and it's literally because Sam told you to. So again, I think that was sort of to make you hate Sam more. But yeah. Back to Mafia 2 though. Again, it's literally just the same game but with better textures. Not much. I don't think anything has really been changed. But yeah, it is a great game for replayability because I bought the trilogy, so I figured I'm just gonna play those as well. But yeah, if you have the original, you're not gonna be missing out on much. And there's certain mods you can get to restore that graphical fidelity. But yeah, I will say it is rather on the intensive side of things. I don't know if it entirely should be, but when I was driving through certain tunnels, I'd only get like 24 frames. I don't know if that should be the case there, but it is what it is. Oh, I did try and play Joe's Adventures. Basically, yeah, when I made my Black Ops Cold War video, at the same time I was also playing through Joe's Adventures in Mafia 2 DE. And while the beginning of that was great, I liked it and all, I ended up becoming really bored of it and just not liking its gameplay style. The beginning is literally just Mafia 2, except more of it where we play as Joe, and I'm fine with that because I liked Mafia 2, I liked its gameplay loop and its story and all. No, but again, Joe's Adventures is more so about the gameplay loop. Yeah, it pretty much just fills in the gap between Vito going to prison and him getting out, which I didn't know until, yeah, so when we originally had Mafia 2, I, began Joe's Adventures after I beat the game, and I found out that, it was actually took place in between Vito getting arrested for the gas stamp whole ordeal. But I ended up just not playing it, not sure why. So now I tried to begin again after Vito got arrested, and yeah, I feel like they should have become, like, added it into the story just in general, but unfortunately they didn't. So yeah, I decided to play it and try and get through it. It gives you more insight on onto everything Joe did while Vito was in prison, but here's the thing. Again, the very beginning of it is like it's just literally just more of Mafia 2, which I'm fine with because I love Mafia 2. I love its gameplay loop. But that all happens in the 40s. Again, the game jumps to the 50s after a bit, and that part I feel like the game starts to the gameplay starts to get really weak as you're just placed into an open world, which is fine and all, but you're supposed to go around doing missions. Whenever you activate a mission, you just see a picture of whoever you're doing the mission of and some dialogue you have to read. Then you only have a certain time limit of doing that mission. I know there are more cutscenes and all in the game, there were more cutscenes later on, but I wasn't motivated to actually get to those parts, as those first beginning missions were really let down. Again, when you first get back and it's in the game jumps to the 50s, those first beginning missions I feel were pretty unfortunate letdown. And I wish it was just more of Mafia 2. I wish it was just like 5 more levels of Mafia 2 where you played as Joe, giving more insight. I would have been fine with that. But instead they tried to make it its own thing. Same thing with Jimmy's story. Again, it was sort of the same ordeal where you only had certain time limits to do certain missions, and I thought that was, I don't know, again, I just didn't like the whole gameplay loop that much at all. So, that's what I thought I would say, but other than that, Mafia 2 is pretty much the same. Mafia 3 DE is completely unchanged, other than the fact that you get the DLCs. So I'm just going to be talking about Mafia 3 as a whole, then, because it's the same game, and I don't think any of the graphics have been updated. Maybe they added motion blur, I'm not entirely sure. So, yeah, Mafia 3 is, I got a bit to say about it, as you can imagine. It's not always had the best reputation, and I am not going to help it with that by saying what I'm saying now. Yeah, I generally did not like Mafia 3, not because of its story, but the gameplay loop wasn't able to keep me hooked. Okay, first of all, when I first tried playing this, the game kept crashing on the Haiti mission. And again, back in August, I tried to play through this game. I got bored of it. Don't know why. It's not because, again, back then I didn't think it was that bad of a game. I just sort of stopped playing it. But this time I stopped playing it because I actually got bored of it. But back to the beginning. In the beginning of Mafia 3, again, you go kill a bunch of Haitians. The game kept crashing on that part, so I had to pirate it 3 times, each time not working. I had to go from a different repacker each time. Finally got one to work. I don't even remember who I got it from, but I finally got the game to work and was playing it. And as far as I know, it was the full game. I believe so. I believe it was the full game, along with the DLCs. But it ended up not mattering as I started to get bored of it. It had so much potential, becoming a great game. I wish they kept the same gameplay loop that Mafia 1 and 2 had, with the levels being sandbox based and not open world. The game, at a certain point, feels like it's not progressing anywhere, or the story doesn't feel like it's progressing anywhere, and you're just doing the same thing over and over again. It becomes very repetitive and very just boring. The first beginning missions where you're working with Sammy and Ellis and even Father James, those were great. Those felt like a Mafia game, and they could have stretched that. I wish they stretched that out more. I wish it wasn't a betrayal story, but instead, imagine, times are desperate, and people look to the Black Mob for help and stuff, and you're just trying to keep things together while dealing with the Italians and Sal Marcano and Vito and whatnot, and the Irish, and I wish it was just more so doing that rather than getting revenge on Sal Marcano for killing Sammy and Ellis. Yeah, again, those beginning missions where they were there helping you, those felt like a Mafia game. But after that, things just sort of go weak, you know? Yeah, again, originally you're motivated to go kill Sal because he killed Sammy, but it just takes so long to get anywhere with this. So yeah, again, you assign a district to at the beginning of the no. Okay, so here's what happens. Again, you're just sort of running around doing stuff for Sammy and Ellis, sort of for a very short time at the very beginning. It's not gonna take you too long to get through that. At least it shouldn't. And then finally he gets killed, and the game becomes completely open world, and you're working with John Donovan to go take down Sal. And by doing this, you go recruit a bunch of 3 underbosses. That's this woman named Cassandra, Vito Scaletta from Mafia 2, and Thomas. I think his first name was Thomas Burke. I forget what his name was. I think his name was Thomas Burke. Well, anyways, you collect this, or you have this guy from the Irish mob. I believe he is the Irish mob. You have this third underboss named Burke. I'll just call him Burke for now. And you recruit them, give them each one district, or you help them secure each of their own districts so they can finally work again. And then after this, the game's just giving each person a district. And again, they had a sort of good thing going there, but it could have been so much better. They could have made that interesting, but it really wasn't. I mean, imagine if Mafia 3 was literally done through the Mafia 2 story. Imagine, I'm trying to get my words right here. Hold on. What I'm trying to say is, imagine if Mafia 3's story was told through Mafia 2's sort of sandbox-based levels, where if you were getting underbosses and getting their or you were helping your underbosses through actual story missions. You weren't just clearing out certain people, robbing certain places, because that's the majority of what you're doing. And you could do actual story missions, but a lot of times you'll also be doing a lot of side quests to sort of help. Again, getting the underbosses their certain districts. And over time, this becomes really repetitive because you're doing the same thing. You're robbing a place, killing a bunch of people, robbing a place, killing a bunch of people. There are story missions, but it doesn't feel like anything's actually happening. And it ends up becoming really boring. I wish instead it was, I wish it was more so focused on the Black Mob itself, rather than just Lincoln and him trying to take over everything. I wish it was more so focused on their activities, because the first 2 games gave a lot of depth and helped people understand sort of how the Mafia works. It wasn't the most accurate, I'll admit, but it did give a better understanding of how things worked. Imagine they did it with the Black Mob, you know? It's a very different side of the story there, and I felt like it wasn't touched as it should be, because once Sammy and Ellis die, you're taking over everything. You're not really doing much, you're not working for, you're just taking over everything. With the help of your underbosses. But, it doesn't even feel like you're taking over everything. It feels like you're just giving everything away, and you're just working for people. You're not exactly helping them. They're like, they tell you to do this, you go do it. You know, it's not really the other way around. But yeah, the story just felt like it wasn't getting anywhere. It felt like nothing was really happening, and the ultimate goal wasn't being achieved by each little progression step. So that's my main, problem with Mafia 3. I did look up all the endings, though, and the endings were different than how I thought they would be. I did know there was 3 endings. You could either rule together, rule alone, or leave the city. I thought the first 2 weren't Mafia-esque, but then I actually looked them up and found out they do complete the game. See, I thought that would have been like GTA, where at the end of Vice City or GTA 5, you rule everything. You have your own company. At least no. Trevor Phillips Industries is booming at the end of GTA 5. GTA San Andreas, you rule all the districts, sort of. You sort of have your own company now and sort of have taken over a lot, and the game is just like that. It ends up with you having everything. Mafia 1 and 2 don't really do that. They actually have endings to their stories. You die at the end, or Mafia 2 end up off a cliffhanger. But the point is, you don't end up ruling everything. The story just doesn't end like that. It actually has a closed ending to it, sort of. I originally thought that was going to be the case with Mafia 3, but no, the games actually end. It actually tells you what happens after. If you rule everything, it shows you who did what, they did this, where's everyone now in 2016. So I thought that was actually pretty cool because, again, I thought the endings were going to be much different. I thought the only ending that actually happened. I thought the only ending that was going to be the most Mafia-esque was the Leave the City ending, but no, they all have endings to them, proper closed endings. So I thought that was much better than I thought. But how did I find out these endings? I looked them up on YouTube because I got so bored. I figured this is going to take me so long. This is Mafia 2, the base story missions alone, I'm pretty sure, are 22 hours of content. Whereas Mafia 3, I mean, the base story missions alone are 22 hours of content. Mafia 2, it's 15 hours. So, yeah, there's a big difference. There's a big difference between how long Mafia 3 is and Mafia 2. That's like 7 more hours of gameplay. And again, it would be fine if it felt like things were changing, things were happening, but it didn't. I just wish that it wasn't a revenge story. I wish Sammy and Ellis didn't die so early. I wish you were actually working for them and helping out the community and whatnot, and working more with the black mob, and just I wish it shadowed. I wish it used sort of. I just wish it was more centered around that than what we got. Because again, it didn't feel like you were doing much. It didn't feel like you were taking over everything or you were getting closer to Sal Marcano. You just kept killing people and over again, and it was just too old. Like I said earlier with the shooting, Mafia 1 had things to back up its shootings and didn't feel so repetitive. Mafia 3 does not. Mafia 1 DE, it just had sort of little gameplay elements that just made shooting feel so much more better. I can't pinpoint all of them, but that's just to give you a basic overhaul. Mafia 3 did not have these little aspects, and therefore, its gameplay loop suffered drastically because of it. And in the end, I just got bored. I love the characters, don't get me wrong. Sammy and Ellis were very underused. And Father James is also very underused, as after Sammy and Ellis die, he's sort of just there to talk about the future, and talk about the present, I mean. But doesn't have actual much to do with the main game story. He's only there in the future talking about everything that happened. I wish that was different. I wish he had more involvement. You talk to him here and there, at least as far as I know. I don't know if you'd start doing missions for him and whatnot. Because again, I didn't make it. I didn't complete the game, but from what I can tell, I think it was just gonna be about him talking about the future, him and Agent McGuire. And I get McGuire doesn't have much to do with the actual gameplay story. That's fine and all, but Father James is there. He's present. He's there, and I wish they did more with him. If they didn't do much with his character and kept things the way they were going, I wish they did more. Again, I don't know if they did at some point because I didn't make it that far. I didn't make it to the point where that happens if it does. But yeah, again, that first bit, that first beginning before Sammy and Ellis before Lincoln gets betrayed, that felt like a really strong. The gameplay loop there and the story felt really strong. It sort of weakened after that. Well, not so much the story, but just the gameplay loop. It felt strong and good, but then it just weakened after that, and that's why I got bored of it. I wish it was just more of those beginning things you were doing, I felt like you were actually doing some good and actually getting things done. You're helping out the community, taking out the Haitians. But in the end, that was all cut short by everything else. And yeah, imagine that though. You're just trying to hold everything together, dealing with the Italians, Sal Marcano and Lou Marcano. No, and Georgie, and you have John Donovan helping you out with certain things. And imagine if that was a narrative story told by through Mafia 2's gameplay style. They could have actually kept the same story, made things more similar to Mafia 2. I would have been fine with that. They just made things more Mafia 2-esque, but they didn't, and we got what we got. And that's why, again, I just didn't bother completing it. And it's really unfortunate, because I wanted to complete this game. I really wanted to like and enjoy this game, but I didn't. that's basically my whole take on Mafia, on the whole Mafia trilogy. My final overview is that if you enjoyed Mafia 2, didn't really like Mafia 1 that much, then you're going to like Mafia DE, because it's meant for those people. If you're a strong, hardcore fan of Mafia DE, or Mafia 1, didn't really like Mafia 2, then you're probably not going to like Mafia DE. You might just want to stick to the original, and maybe even run a few graphics mods on it. Mafia 3 doesn't really fit into this category because it doesn't even feel like a Mafia game. It just feels like its own thing. But it doesn't exactly feel like a Mafia game. So again, yeah, if you really like Mafia 2, you're going to like Mafia DE. If you didn't like Mafia 2 so much, but were a strong fan of Mafia 1, such as Mini-Me, I saw his video on I saw his review on Mafia 1, and he actually pointed out a lot of flaws with the game. Again, with a lot of it being that they took away some certain bits of realism in the original game, in the definitive edition of Mafia 1, there's certain bits of realism that the original had that they took away. I'm not sure why, but yeah, those things I could agree with them on. But other than that, yeah, if you like Mafia 2, you're gonna enjoy Mafia DE. If you didn't like Mafia 2, but are a strong fan of Mafia 1, you're not gonna be the biggest fan of the remake, because the remake isn't exactly meant for you. It's meant for those people who didn't like the original, but I felt it was just too realistic. And it's cool because you can even change the driving from simulation to regular. To simulate actual cars from the time, or regular, more archaic driving. And I thought that was great, because it was great how you could disable that on and off. Because in the racing mission, I honestly couldn't get through it until I finally disabled the put the driving on regular and put the difficulty on easy. It took me so long to get through that. That pretty much wraps up everything I have to say about the trilogy. Should I recommend you play it? Honestly, what I would do now really is replay. I'd buy Mafia DE for sure. Would I buy Mafia 2 DE and the trilogy? I'm not sure actually. Again, because with Mafia 2, you're not getting much of an upgrade other than textures itself. It's not a whole new experience like you would with Mafia 1 DE. That's really up to personal preference. Mafia 3, I hate to say it, I can't exactly recommend it. I have a difficult time doing so, as it had a lot of potential, had a really strong start, but ended up falling flat and weak in the long run of things. Well, that's just my overview of it all. What do you guys think of it? I'd love to hear your opinions, and yeah, if you like Mafia 3, that's great. If you didn't like it, that's great. If you didn't like the remaster, that's great. If you liked it, that's great. But tell me what you guys thought, because I have my share of opinions, and I'm sure you have yours.